Hello and welcome. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. My name is Eric Casio, Instructional Technologist with ODU. I will be the moderator for this ADEIL conference session. Before we begin, on behalf of ADEIL, we'd like to thank our generous sponsor, Noodle, and our host, Old Dominion University. We're thankful for their contributions in making this event possible. And I was also asked to randomly select a winner from the list of participants on this panel for a small prize at the end. So now I am going to just randomly select a number from the number generator on my screen. And that number is going to correspond with Becca Denny. And if you will be, if you want to claim your prize before the end, you could go ahead and send me your full name and email in the chat, or you could private message me with that, and I'll put you on the list of winners. And I will now introduce Mr. Adrian Anderson, Coordinator of Academic Integrity and Student Conduct from the University of South Carolina. And thank you for joining us for Artificial Intelligence, Use It or Lose It.
Okay, so let me just get my screen shared here. All right, okay, we're good, Eric?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect, okay. So yes, my name is Adrian Anderson. I'm the coordinator for academic integrity and student conduct. And so we'll talk about artificial intelligence. We'll define it for the purposes of this conversation, what that looks like on our campus, how we've seen it used, both in positive and not so positive ways. We'll talk about what happens when a student visits the Office of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity after misusing artificial intelligence, and then we'll have some questions at the end for anyone who wants to pick my brain, and we'll just go like that. So just jump right in. So as a disclaimer, who am I and what am I not? So I'm a content administrator.
Excuse me, Adrian. I just want to let you know that your audio is breaking up a little bit.
No, what? Oh, that changed. Okay. Is the audio better now?
Keep talking and we'll let you know.
Perfect. Okay. So just stop me if you can't hear me. So a little bit about what I am and what I'm not. So I hear cases on a regular basis with students who are alleged as to violating the honor code or the code of conduct. And that could be a range of things. I'm an instructor, so I teach university 101, so like the intro to college life class here on campus at USC. I love technology. I love learning more. I love learning about what I don't know. And being a tech nerd and a lifelong learner, and this role has fueled my research into artificial intelligence, because obviously it's something that we deal with in our office as students are using it more and more. And I'm curious about it in my personal life as well. I'm not an expert on all things artificial intelligence and synthetic neural engines. There's a lot of science and math that goes into what makes artificial intelligence work. So I know some of those things. I'll share some of those things, but of course, there may be some things that are beyond my knowledge. So let's dive in. Like I said, today we'll talk about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all of those things, and why maybe you should care about those things. We'll get into the limitations of artificial intelligence as they stand right now. That's changing every day. It's getting smarter and smarter. And how it may impact your classroom, some suggested uses of artificial intelligence, and so on. So what is artificial intelligence? It's a very broad term that includes many different things, but all you need to know is it includes technology that simulates human intelligence by way of these large language models. So it is not sentient. They're not necessarily talking robots going to take over the world, but it is little things incrementally done in technology that will should be enhancing the human experience. So ChatGPT is just one company that produces artificial intelligence. There are, I mean, many different companies that do this. Some more popular. ChatGPT kind of took, I guess, the world by storm when it came on the scene, and it is under the parent company of OpenAI. So it focuses more on language and processing. There are other platforms that focus on image creation and coding and things like that. But many professors, students, faculty, staff have used the term ChatGPT interchangeably with artificial intelligence. That does matter in the conduct process, which I'll talk about towards the end. But often when someone says AI or ChatGPT, they're talking about the same thing. I kind of equate it to people calling every soda that Coke makes Coke. Coke is just the name brand, so it's more popular to say. Like Kleenex as well. Kleenex is tissue, but Kleenex is a brand of tissue, but it's the more popular one. So ChatGPT is no different than that. So as of today, artificial intelligence does not have free will. It cannot make decisions on its own. It simply scours the internet, it scours these databases, and tries to give an output that feels natural. We've all done Google searches or Bing searches and gotten results that, if they're on that first page and it's a good link, maybe it's a good website, maybe not. But artificial intelligence, particularly these search engines, compile that information so you don't have to dig and find it for yourself. Now, whenever something is doing that work for you, you have to think about, okay, what bias may exist in this process? What sources are they using? What sites are they using? Where's information coming from? Because it's not just an all-knowing being. So depending on where it's coming from, it could change the response. But the biggest thing is it just sounds natural in most cases. So I play around with artificial intelligence often. I play around with ChatGPT and things to do things in my personal life, to do things at work as well. So I would encourage you to do the same thing if you haven't. Speaking of those companies that artificial intelligence touches, I mean, these are just a handful: Intel, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Qualcomm, Microsoft, Google, many things. So in the beginning, or say the beginning of this year or so, many professors were contacting our office and saying, can we ban artificial intelligence? Can we just make it not a thing? And that's not quite how it works. So IBM, they use AI to simulate the spread of COVID-19 and how mask slow viral propagation. So you're able to run these tests more efficiently, very quickly by using an artificial intelligence model. You also have Amazon, who uses it to aid its search results and accuracy with Alexa responses. I think every single one of us probably on this call has accepted terms and conditions to Siri, Apple, Amazon, whatever it is. And those things are recorded and they're kept in a database. And depending on how successful or not successful those responses were, artificial intelligence is used to sift through that information to make the device seem smarter or more accurate or more effective when using it. Microsoft, so USC is a Microsoft campus. We have 365 platforms, and artificial intelligence touches all of those things. So if you're having a student write a paper in Word or use PowerPoint, they could be using artificial intelligence knowingly or unknowingly. But what's important is coming up with ways to define how you want it to be used in your classroom. So what are some limitations at the moment? So like I said, artificial intelligence can't think. It can't create new ideas. It just finds what it thinks is the best idea based on how it's been trained. But it's growing exponentially. The usage data for things like ChatGPT, it surpasses the adoption rate of Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, anything, and the adoption of the internet for that matter, with how quickly new users were hopping on to use the service once it was known. There is no industry that is not touched by artificial intelligence. I think, some people have asked, do you think it will replace people one day will their jobs just go away. And I think that rather than there being artificial intelligence or human intelligence used for work, it will be humans who use artificial intelligence versus those who don't. And that will make the difference between who is successful going forward in the workplace. And rather than beat AI, you may just be better off using it. There are tons of shortcuts that it can give you in creating coursework and creating syllabi and creating assignments and rubrics and grading. There's so many positive ways that you could use AI. There's really no need to be afraid of it, but rather I think we can embrace it for many, many, many reasons. Some pitfalls to avoid in assignment creation include things like basic reflection prompts. Anytime you have homework that can be done with referencing any lived experience, that's going to help you in avoiding the misuse of artificial intelligence. But then don't assign busy work either. So all of these things are things that I think most teachers, most people who want an engaging classroom will do or avoid to create a positive atmosphere for learning. If the prompts are too basic and you're assigning busy work, students feel that. So they're less inclined to actually do the work. They're less inclined to want to put in the effort to give a response they think you'd actually read or appreciate. So if we can avoid doing those things, we may avoid the misuse of artificial intelligence directly or indirectly, simply by making the assignment or the homework or whatever it is more interesting to the people who are doing it. So here is a screenshot from Bing. So if you've used AI, if you haven't used AI, there are free versions, there are paid versions. One of the free versions that I encourage all of you to do is just go to bing.com, right? So the world's most popular search site, right? And anytime you do a Bing search, you can click over to the chat function. So Microsoft actually invested billions of dollars into the OpenAI company. And as OpenAI and ChatGPT are creating new products, they are incorporating ChatGPT directly into Microsoft platforms. So this chat is essentially ChatGPT with a different skin. So I asked it a common question that you may ask a student who's in a first-year experience class. It says, hey, write a short essay reflection on the topic of my first month in college. So it does some thinking. And in this particular case, rather than the chat creating a response, it just said, you know, I found this website and I think it has exactly what you want. So whenever you click on the little link, 123helpme.com, it'll take you directly to an essay that could be copied and then sent off as their own work. One other thing to note on this screen is the Learn More section. So these are the citations for this response. Now, some of these citations may be valid, some of them not so much. So when asking questions about particular historical events or things of that nature, whenever you or anyone else is using AI, it could be important to actually check those sources before just assigning yourself that this response is one that's accurate. I even played with this and asked it questions more directly about what should I do at USC in my first week of college. And it gave me some positive answers, but then I noticed in the citations, it was citing the University of Southern California, so a different USC. So if you're assigning work, reflection activities, things like that, and you're getting a response that's like way left field, but sounds pretty good for what it is, there's a chance that that may have been some AI or a chat bot that was used to assist the student in completing that work, and that's why it's so strange. So getting back to this though, clicking on that link, it takes them directly to this website, and here's a reflection, 755 words of a document. They can preview it, they can pay for the full thing, and they can get an assignment just like that. So AI on its own, yes, it's very smart, very intelligent, but it's still just pulling things that already exist, not creating very new things. And if it's pulling this paper on that response, well, if you see a paper identical to this one, you know, well, they probably both used either AI or at least an outside source when completing whatever work it was that you assigned. how can you use AI in your classroom? So there are a plethora of ways you could do it. I picked just a handful to talk about today. One is just use your old lesson plans and think about modifying them with a new twist. So, for example, you could have your class write a reflection prompt, a response or a reflection prompt from the day's lesson, and then ask an AI engine in class. Ask an AI engine to do the same thing, and then evaluate that engine's response. So essentially, if you were to say, hey, class, I want you all to reflect on photosynthesis, what we learned today. But in doing so, I also want you to ask ChatGPT or ask artificial intelligence to give me a short reflection on photosynthesis, and then evaluate that response. Is AI's response something that you would have said? Is something different there? Is it accurate? Is it not accurate? And by doing that, you do a couple of things. One is you demystify AI a little bit for your students so they can have practice using it, because like I said, I believe it's something that can be used in the future, most definitely in most career fields. Two, you're going to show your class that I know how AI works. And if you try to use it to get ahead of my class, because I've done this, I'm fairly confident in being able to detect it. How can I detect it? By doing the same thing you're having the students do, reflect and evaluate that engine's response. So it'll be accomplishing a couple things at one time just by using a lesson plan you already have. You could also have your class act it out. So have your class work in groups to present on a given topic, and then instruct them to have AI write a short skit on the topic, and then have the group members act out that skit. So in doing that, again, you're getting a little more buy-in, because it's not a boring reflection paper that they have to write again, but rather it's a class activity now. So and we know, if you only have 50 minutes, 75 minutes for your class, the writing process could take more time than the point of the actual material is for the students to retain. So having AI do the script for the skit knocks that out of the way. And the class has to do what? They have to evaluate the response. They have to see, okay, is this accurate to what we've learned in class? Is it not accurate? And then they have to actually act out the material. So we're accomplishing a few things with this as well, getting some higher learning goals and outcomes. And you can get creative. Have your students use AI to create a mind map for idea generation and coming up with new topics for a presentation or paper or an essay. Sometimes it can be hard for a student. I know for myself, I'll sometimes sit and I don't know what I'm going to write about. I don't know what I want to research on for this particular thing. Well, do a mind map. So creative idea generation, where you say, hey AI, or hey Bing, ChatGPT, give me 50 topics on X research topic, or 50 ideas of what to write about. And then you look at all those ideas and say, I like that idea. Maybe I'll do that one, or this one connects to that one. And so this is what I would consider a very positive use of AI that a student can do on their own, because they're not having AI write the paper, but they're using it to help form ideas. No different than flipping through a textbook or going on the internet and seeing what exists on this topic. So they're still doing all the work, but they can get started a little bit quicker by doing this. In many ways, I equate artificial intelligence to the invention of a scientific calculator. In some classes, a basic calculator is all you can use. And in some classes, a scientific calculator is what you can use. And then even when you can use a scientific calculator, there may be stipulations on what brand or what type of calculator you can use. So whenever you're assigning these assignments and you're encouraging the positive use of artificial intelligence, it's very important to define the parameters of that assignment. So what can we do? What can't we do? Where does it stop? I can use AI to mind map, but I can't use AI to write a paragraph, and so on. And even if they can use AI as a source, you can also cite it as well. MLA, APA, Chicago, all of those platforms have guidelines for how to cite whenever you've used a chatbot. So there's really in our offices, I mean, there's no excuse to misuse it when you can cite it like a source. You can ask professors for permission on what to do, and so on. So you're thinking about using AI, or you don't want AI used at all. Start with the syllabus. It's important. That's a contract between yourself, the student, and the university. So making sure you have a clear idea of what is allowed and what is not allowed in your class will set you and your students up for success. So this is part one of that syllabus statement that we've provided to faculty to copy, to plagiarize, and change and put into their syllabi as well. We don't want syllabi to be a book, but with artificial intelligence growing in its use and popularity, it could be important to reflect that in your syllabus as a statement. And this is a very general one that our office developed. There's part two of it, and it just says, essentially, the University of South Carolina, as of today, has not decided to make a new policy or a new rule, a new code addendum or anything to address artificial intelligence. Rather, we are using what we have defined as unauthorized assistance or unauthorized aid, as well as misrepresenting or misleading others to the work that you did. Those are the two violations that have already existed for years and have been used in cases where students have cheated with other students, copied off another student's paper, used things like Chegg and Course Hero and Quizlet, and they've been successful. So having that broader definition of what could be cheating in this particular case has been fairly easy to apply, falsification and cheating charges for students who come to our office. For a second, I want to talk about why students cheat. So Dan Airley is a researcher who did a lot of behavioral analysis, and in one of his TED Talks, he found through his research that whenever people cheat, they usually just do it by a little bit. And I kind of explain it this way: if you're walking down the road and you see a $5 bill on the ground, if you're anything like me, you will look around, see if anyone dropped money, anyone's looking for anything. Then you might walk over and step on the $5 bill, keep looking around, and then you bend an entire shoe, and then you have $5, right? But if you were to see a check for $5,000 on the ground, and that check had banking information, the person who's writing the check's name, the bank address and phone number, you're more likely to then take that check to the bank and say, hey, someone dropped $5,000. I want to return that to this person. Because we want to still feel good about ourselves. We want to look in the mirror at night and say, I'm a good person. So when weighing those things, we tend to do the lesser than the much greater thing. And when the same thing applies to cheating, and therefore cheating by way of artificial intelligence, most students don't wake up in the morning and say, today, I'm going to have ChatGPT take all my classes. I'm going to have them write all of my essays. No one does that. They're here to learn. They want to learn. But what does happen is it's 11:55 and they have 5 minutes to finish this essay or this exam. They've been procrastinating. They've been stressed. They work multiple jobs. They have things going on. So if AI seems like a plausible way to do things, they'll go to AI. They'll say, hey, do this reflection or evaluate this or whatever. And it's a split-second decision. And then once they're found out and sent to our office, we have found them more likely to accept responsibility because there's not much buy-in to that choice that they made. It was a very quick decision. They're not married to it because it didn't really take much action on their part. So they're more willing to just say, yeah, I got caught. I did it. I'm going to take responsibility. So what does that process look like in our office? So at USC, whenever there's a reporter of a violation, and that could be a faculty member or a student, a report is sent to our office with the exam information or essay or homework assignment information, the syllabus, what the accusation is. We read over that and we sometimes call the professor for more clarification. And then the student meets in our office with myself or another coordinator, and we discuss the issue. We're not a court of law, So we find students responsible or not responsible based on the evidence we have, using the preponderance of evidence standards. So is it more likely than not something that's true based on the evidence that we have? Once we meet preponderance, so we think we have enough information, we find a student responsible, we will then, they can accept it and complete the sanctions that I'll assign, or they can choose to go to a panel hearing to have the case reheard. And that will be a panel of 2 students and a faculty member in a judicial council hearing. Once an outcome is reached, if they're still responsible or they accept it before the CJC, in most cases, those students are issued 2 sanctions. They complete the online academic integrity workshop, which is a free asynchronous course through Blackboard. And it focuses on academic integrity. They reflect on the incident that brought them to our office. They listen to the TED Talk that I mentioned about cheating behaviors, and they do some self-help and time management practices as well, given that that's why most of the students come and see our office. In addition to the workshop, they're also placed on 6 months of conduct probation, which is really just a hard warning from our office. You know, if this happens again, in 6 months, there could be more severe consequences. And then the faculty reporter is sent an outcome letter as well as the student at the conclusion of that meeting, so they know what's going on. And if they want to issue a grade penalty, they can do so at that point. Using artificial intelligence improperly or violating one of our policies, in most cases, is still considered a low-level violation, no different than cheating any other old-fashioned way. But of course, if those students are graduate students or PhD students, and they're found to be misusing or violating any honor codes, there could be more severe consequences, with transcript notations, suspensions, and so on. So hopefully, after today, you've learned at least one thing, and tomorrow you may use something differently. So if you haven't used AI or you haven't used Bing Chat specifically, definitely try it out. Put one of your homework prompts or essay prompts into a chat bot, see what comes out, and evaluate it that way. We have professors who, rather than trying to use an AI detector tool, they will have an AI bot complete their assignment and then use that assignment and compare it to every other assignment that was submitted, no different than the answer key they may have for an exam. That way they know if the essay seems a little bit off, a little strange, if that essay looks a lot like the one that they made with AI, more than likely the student used some form of AI to do it. AI is smart, but it uses patterns. So no matter what brand or what type it is, it tends to give the same homogeneous, polished tone, for sure. And taking a step out for a second. So this is, your PowerPoint screen here. If you look, this is on the home tab, and there's a little designer button here that can help you edit your presentation. So I have an image here, and it's there, and it's shrank, and now it's small. Well, these are different ideas. If you look in the corner here, those ideas are powered by Office Intelligence Services. So that's just Microsoft's AI department. So again, we can't really just say we're going to ban artificial intelligence, because most of us have probably been using it and we just had no idea. So again, hopefully you learned something, and tomorrow you use something a little differently. Here are the sources. I promise this stuff is all backed up by someone smarter than me. But of course I can share if anyone has questions. If not, we can go for a Q&A. And of course, feel free to email me as well after the presentation, and we can chat if you have questions or something specific you want to share with the group. But yeah, thanks for coming to our presentation. Any questions or thoughts or anything? No, hearing none. Stop sharing. There we go. Well, hearing none, I don't think there's anything in the chat hopefully took something away from this. We learned something together. It was great talking about it. I love learning more about artificial intelligence and also how it impacts students and things as well.
There is one question actually that just came up in the chat. Can you please provide some examples for assignments?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're saying assignments that we can give students to use artificial intelligence. Is that what you mean? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So in addition to those three, you can there's an old-fashioned project that's done in elementary school, where it's how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, where you have the you bring in the materials to class, and then the teacher says, "Oh, you forgot the bread. Oh, you forgot. How are you spreading it? You spreading it with one knife or use two knives? Those kinds of things." Well, you can also have students ask AI a question about how do you make a thing, or how do you design this? What is the recipe for this? And then see what it says, evaluate the pitfalls that may exist. You can use it for more prep activities. So if your class is focused, let's say it's an English class and it's focused on writing research papers, you can have it help make Venn diagrams or other things of that nature as well to kind of get the juices flowing and what to write about. But essentially, any activity or assignment you can think of, there's probably some element of it that could be changed or adapted or used, or AI where AI could be used. Even in assignments where you have students debate a topic. So you say, okay, students, some of you are the Axis powers, and then some of you are, and of course, it's a terrible history and why I picked that example. Some of you are the Alliance, the Axis powers, and the World War I sides. But you're either sides of the war. Now defend your stance. Why are you doing this? Do you feel justified? Well, rather than just having the two groups do that, you could just ask AI to pretend to be a leader on one end of the topic and a leader on the other end of the topic, and then have AI debate itself. And then have students document that either the students can use those things as talking points for a classroom debate, or they could just say the paper could be about the debate that AI made. And you can say, well, this software said this and this software said that. Here's the sources they use and here's the sources they use. I can understand whether they made the argument now or it was way off base. So you could do things like that as well. Recently, I did an information literacy lesson for my intro to college students. And we talked about evaluating different news websites in more conservative or liberal medias, or getting news from social media and TikTok and Snapchat and things like that, and talking about how do you define an accurate or reliable source. And any of those things to be used as well to debate and figure out if AI is an accurate source based on the sources that it gives or the responses it gives as well. So yeah, there are many different ways that you could definitely use it for sure. Awesome. Well, I'll share as well. Yes, you're welcome. I'll share as well in our office about starting in August, so this semester, roughly 90% of the cases we've seen to this point for artificial intelligence or for academic integrity violations have involved some form of artificial intelligence. And it's not what everyone, I think, is defaulting to, which is essay creation. Some of those violations are things like over editing. So Grammarly, for example, very popular editor. I use Grammarly. Grammarly has adopted AI into its platform. So some of the ways in which it corrects a student's writing or a person's writing, it's over editing beyond what the student actually wrote. And if the student doesn't have a clear understanding of what the topic is or what the response they're going for is, the odds are there's something that could say be more advanced, or might miss the mark in the particular assignment. And professors pick up on that very easily when they're expecting, teaching 5, 10, 15 years, on what to get from a sophomore, for example. And students have said, oh, well, I didn't use AI. Well, I asked, how'd you do your paper? How'd you write the assignment? So, well, I use this editor or something like that. And like, well, that may be where it is. And then we'll look into it. We've also had cases of international students who've used some translators to complete that work. Some of those translators use artificial intelligence. They're much more fluid. They sound a lot better than like Google Translate. But the issue is if a student writes in one language and has AI translate the entire thing, and they're not able to evaluate what was written because it's a new language, then it's a different paper in some cases, or it misses the mark completely. So, we've had those issues in our office that we've had to deal with as well. And like with any violation, an accidental violation is still a violation. And of course, the sanctions and the conversation is tailored to those students to make sure, what is said is still beneficial to them, regardless of what happened. But like speeding and not knowing the limit, if you're speeding, you get the ticket. So you still do those things as well.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I just want to thank everybody for attending, and I'm also posting the link to the conference evaluation in the chat, which you could save that link and access the evaluation after the conference. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the ADEIL conference.
Right. Thank you so much. Bye.